So hi Cristina, thanks so much for being here today. So Christina's a 2004 Rhodes Scholar from Colorado. She's a poet, theatre artist and historian, and we're really excited that she's found some time to visit us today to talk about her work and also perform some of her poems as well. So should we start, Cristina, if you could tell us a bit more about yourself and your work, what you do?
I'm Cristina Bejan, DPhil Oxon. I am Romanian American, born in Colorado. At the height of the Cold War, this is very important to my writing. My father was an engineering professor at the local university, and for his job, when I was 2 years old, we moved to Perth, Australia, and after that, Durham, North Carolina, which is where I grew up. My mom, I found out recently, couldn't wait to get out of Boulder because she wanted to raise her kids in a more diverse place. So that's a joke for the Colorado Scholars. I teach in Denver at the University of Denver. I'm a historian. I write history books. I write poetry books, and also I write tons of plays. I've written 19 plays and recently published 5 of them. I run an arts platform that we're going to talk more about, Bucharest Inside the Beltway. I am a fur mom, a proud mom of 2 dogs and 1 cat. I have a wonderful partner, and I'm very grateful to be healthy and alive in Colorado.
Okay, thank you. So we spoke about this a bit earlier, but this is the 20th anniversary of you coming to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. Could you tell us a bit about your memories of when you were studying here in Oxford?
Thank you, yes. Well, I think there are 2 chapters or maybe 2 parallel lives of memories at Oxford. I didn't have a great Rhodes experience, and you can read all about it in my poetry book, Green Horses on the Walls. But I did have some Rhodes Scholar friends, and we're still lifelong friends. We still get together. I just saw Rachel Wagner in New York City and Heather Long in Washington, D.C. Tope Falarin and I are very close. That'll probably come up later. I'm still a very proud member of my 2004 American Rhodes class. But I really found my sanctuary in Wadham College, which is the anniversary that I'm here for, 20 years of my college friends. Last weekend, we went to an abbey and stayed. It was very much like a monastic cottage experience where George Orwell's grave is located. And we get together every 5 years, everybody coming from all ends of the earth. And I did a DPhil in history. Most of my research took place in Bucharest, Romania. So I lived in Romania for a long time. I also was a Fulbright in Romania. My memories of Oxford, I did tons of theater. I'll give a shout out to Tope. We did a play together our first year. And then a lot of conversations until 5 a.m. debating politics. So I would say Wadham, which is Oxford's most radical college, first college that was founded by a woman in 1609, Wadham's queer college, and all sorts of fabulous things about Wadham. I was very intentional when I selected it. It was those late night conversations that completely radicalized me and made me passionate to be the change, fight for the change. And I am very involved in human rights work and expressing a lot of opinions that I know are not popular, but I'm hoping are tipping the scale towards a brighter future, and also in the Rhodes community.
Thank you. So last year we talked last year while we were putting together this series of 120 books from 120 years, in which we put Green Horses on the Wall as one of those books. But when you thank you. When you replied to that, you had so many suggestions of other scholars who were working in the arts. You said, what about this person, people who I'd never heard of. And it seemed like you're on a bit of a mission to publicise with other Rhodes scholars who've been in the arts. And I've talked to Tope about this, about how when you were here in 2004, he said there really wasn't a great deal. You're having to find that out for yourself. I think you've done more to educate me about scholars working in the arts than anyone else.
Well, thank you. Richard, that was an absolute pleasure and joy. Thank you for, I would say, soliciting my opinion and incorporating my feedback. I never think of it as a mission, or you referred to it as a side project or something.
Side quest.
Side quest. I love that. No, I am on a single quest in my life. Everything gets my full attention when I'm working on it. I think I got thinking about why I am so passionate about amplifying Rhodes creatives, and the origin story is I can locate the time and place and the person, although I shall not share names, and that is Bon Voyage Weekend 2004, Washington, D.C. All the American scholars come together, and we're like meeting the important people in DC, and about to go off to Oxford for the best experience of our lives. And some DC brass was lecturing us about the merit of the Iraq War on Capitol Hill, and I laughed. I was sitting there, and of course, not buying what he said, and one of my classmates next to me, who is currently involved in politics, no surprise, turns to me and says, "Oh, Cristina, you're just a theater person. You would never understand." Look who understands now, 20 years later. This is actually a very important story because I felt othered from that moment, going into my Rhodes life and my Rhodes scholarship feeling like a complete alien moron who didn't belong to be there. And that is what motivates me to normalize being a creative Rhodes Scholar. You know, you don't have to be a professional artist in any way, but if you have a creative impulse, Oxford's a perfect place to just kind of explore and experiment. I mean, that's the play that Tokay and I were in first year is a great example. And so that is the origin story, but the way it's happened, because things happen very organically, is when I was leaving Oxford, finishing my DPhil, Catherine King, who used to work here in Rhodes House, said to me on my way out, "You know, Cristina, there's an older Rhodes Scholar who's also an Eastern European theater director. You should talk to her." And that was before we had Rhodes Connect. That's before anybody knew who any other Rhodes Scholar was on the face of the earth, except for the super, super famous ones. And she told me about Benuta Rubas, 1977, Rhodes Scholar from Canada, Latvian Canadian, very similar to me being Romanian American. And Benuta, after she finished her Rhodes, went to Latvia and got involved in the local theater scene as part of building civil society in post-communist Latvia. We had a lot to talk about. So I reached out to her. I said, "Benuta, how do I have your life?" She wrote back. She was like, "What is going on? Another Rhodes Scholar who cares about this stuff?" And she's been my mentor ever since. So I found, one of the most important people in my life in the Rhodes community. And now that there is Rhodes Connect and we know who's up to what, it should be so much easier than somebody telling you on your way out. And actually, Benuta was the first reader of the PowerPoint presentation that my co-founder of Bucharest Inside the Beltway and I put together when we were developing our arts platform. So Benuta has been there for me, inspired me. And so once BIB got rolling, Bucharest Inside the Beltway, I'll talk more about that later, I thought it would be a good idea to try to further normalize this Rhodes arts thing, and started a Facebook group with Yan Chen, a scholar from China, called Rhodes Scholars in Arts and Culture. And believe it or not, we have quite a few members. I wouldn't say that people are eager to post, but I think even the fact that it exists is progress. And most recently, it was definitely the most significant publication opportunity that I was asked by Rhodes House to contribute an article about arts and social justice for the Rhodes magazine this past year. I never thought in my lifetime that the Rhodes would actually care about the kind of wacky grassroots theater things that I do. And it really meant a lot. And I actually think it is the mission of Bucharest Inside the Beltway, local and international arts. I think it's a good you don't have to be involved in the arts to see what something like BIB is up to. You have to be involved in your local, whatever it is, community if you actually ultimately want to be part of any change. It's never top down, it's always bottom up. And so I guess that's my quest, Richard. Like I said, I don't think of it that way. I hope anybody who watches this, I was able to identify some really, really fabulous authors and creatives for the 120 years celebration, but that is not an exhaustive list. I have learned from running my arts platform that you never know all the artists out there. And if you want your work to be known, reach out to Richard, reach out to Rhodes House. And then, once I get word of you and other creatives get word of you, we can continue to amplify each other and celebrate each other.
I only had to speak. I was reading some of the poems from Green Horses on the Walls, and obviously the Romanian influence in that is very significant. It influences so much of your work. Tell us about that. I mean, you explained the sort of family connection, but where the inspiration from Romania comes, and and your involvement in the diaspora as well.
Well, thank you. I mentioned that I am a child of the Cold War, and that is fundamental to why I am so tied to my Romanian-ness. My father had stayed out of the country illegally, and he got out of Romania in 1969 on a scholarship, a merit-based scholarship. I'm very proud that I also won a merit-based scholarship to study internationally. And he broke Romanian law by not going back. Secret police followed U.S. family in the U.S., was already following the family in Romania. Both of his parents had been in prison at different intervals. His uncle had been in one of Romania's labor camps. Well, he informed me recently he actually had 2 uncles in the labor camps. Thanks, Dad. Thanks for correcting my poetry book. I didn't know about the second one. But anyway, this is the reality that I grew up in. And I think Romania really ignited my imagination as a child because my father put my sister and myself to bed each night with a bedtime story about his childhood in Romania. And these were just such fantastical tales about the country I left. In Green Horses, the poem about the country I left is about some of those tales. That it just made me, Romania was this land of mystery that I was never going to be able to see because of the Iron Curtain. My father couldn't go back. He would have been thrown into prison. And there's that. Also on the ground in Durham, North Carolina, my father is an immigrant. He didn't know too many immigrant parents. You're always dealing with the where are you from, what's your accent? My father never wanted to tell anyone he was Romanian. He was always French or Italian. Sometimes Brazilian, that was, but what's Romania? Nobody ever heard. So it was a big part of growing up. And then my most vivid childhood memory is when, it began with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. I was 7 years old. My baby brother had just been born. And and then Romania had the most violent revolution of all of the Eastern European revolutions. And it was watching TV. My dad was on the phone with his best friend in Romania, Titus. Oh, this is, I think, a really cool detail. My dad was on Romania's national basketball team, and Titus was one of his teammates. He's still his best friend to this day. And they're speaking rapidly in Romanian, and my dad just drops the phone and stands up and starts crying, "Romania is free." And that's when my sister and he picked us up and we danced around the kitchen, and it meant that we could finally go and meet our family. See, of course. So when that's your most vivid childhood memory, it's kind of hard to think, oh, Romania doesn't really matter. It mattered. And we didn't speak Romanian in the 80s because my father never thought I was going to go back to Romania. And we didn't know a single other Romanian. At that point, Romanians were scared to talk to each other. Romanians overseas were spying on each other, part of the, surveillance network. Anyway, after 89, we started going every year. And then in 2000, I started going on my own. And immersed myself in the language, wrote my DPhil on a Romanian topic. This is the Romanian translation that came out last year of my history book, Intellectuals and Fascism in Interwar Romania, the Criterion Association. And so I kind of got swept up in all things Romanian. And about the diaspora, that's a much longer conversation. This is not to brag, it's just a fact. I am a leader in the Romanian diaspora in the United States. I am the only Romanian Rhodes Scholar, still. I'm a Romanian citizen, US citizen, and I've been very involved in trying to make things better in Romania. So this is a plug, anybody watching this library series. I've been trying to get the word out for Romanian and Moldovan students to apply for Global Rhodes. There's more work to do. Please get the word out now that people can apply from all over the world. Let's continue to make this community have more points of view and more histories, more languages, much more interesting, and then we'll be able to be like actual change, I believe.
A comment on my luxurious life on the west side of the Iron Curtain. Our family had one wood panel minivan. When we went out to eat, it was to the local Chinese restaurant, where the family that owned it considered us family. And their daughter always sat with us and grew up with us. When I drop by, when I'm in town, Joy is the one running the restaurant now, with her own baby on her hip. My father still wears khakis every day. Our family had an aversion to jeans. In preschool, we had a class play about construction. All construction workers had to wear jeans. I stood out in my yellow sweatpants. American Bejans, no jeans. But Romanian Bejans, jeans were the luxury. Jeans were one of the items that we sent in care packages to Galatz in the 1980s. Galatz is an industrial city on the Danube River that my dad is from. His family trapped there, starving, angry, envious, seeing their American family in color photographs while they still existed in black and white, yearning to burst free from communism into color, into the West.
So, go on, tell us a bit more about Bucharest inside the Beltway.
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple times.
I want a card. Give me one of the
Yes. So, Bucharest inside the Beltway, BIB, is the acronym. This year is our 10-year anniversary. 10 years ago, BIB was born at the Romanian Embassy to the United States in Washington, D.C. Although that was when the platform itself was born. The idea was born in, 2008 in Bucharest when I was a doctoral student at the University of Bucharest on a Fulbright. I was invited to produce one of my plays that's actually going to be published this year, Colombo Calling, a play from Sri Lanka, in a local festival. So I was invited by this cultural maker in Bucharest, and we did the play in the festival. It was a great success. And her name is Ruxandra Pop. And out of that collaboration, we kept talking. We decided we wanted to, the first idea was to have an international theater platform between Romania and the US. It was called Platforma. But then she won a Fulbright to study at the University of Indiana. I went up there for a conference. We had this great conversation where we were sitting on the side of a street brainstorming. We decided BIB was actually going to be fully international, not just Romania, US, multicultural, and also not just theater, all creative expression, you name it, literature, poetry, theater, translation, you name it. And so BIB is an arts and culture platform. We are on most of the socials. Please follow us there. And what does BIB do? Promotes local and international artists, also produces art of all kinds. We had hit shows and theater festivals in Washington, D.C. We've had great coverage in D.C., Bucharest, I'm talking about local news, and also now Denver. We had this incredible, it was online during the pandemic, but we had to have our Denver launch because BIB moved from DC to Denver in 2019. We launched the next year with an international playwrights residency with playwrights from all over the world meeting on Zoom, developing their plays. And then it was broadcast on Facebook Live and also YouTube, this showcase of the plays. And so that was our Denver launch. And so plays, poetry, spoken word nights, art exhibitions. We have a number of artists, feature artists for the 10-year anniversary. His name is Ildez, that's his artist name. His real name is David. He is Romanian American from Chicago. His parents fled communism, just like my dad. And he has these great murals all over Denver that are very mathematical in their design. And he has his first solo show in November. BIB is promoting that. So that's just a great example of what we're just part of this. There's a new Puerto Rican theater in town in Denver, and we were a collaborator on the show that launched their company, which was last month. So I hope that gives you a taste of all the things that we're up to. And that's good luck. So I mentioned Criterion Association for my history book, which was my Oxford DPhil. The Criterion Association was a cultural society in 1930s Bucharest that actually is the original inspiration for Bucharest inside the Beltway. So this group of intellectuals, which included Bejan Ionesco, the absurdist playwright. I just visited his grave in Paris yesterday. Choran, nihilist philosopher, Mircea Eliade, all sorts of other names, I'm not going to name them all, would get together, and they had arts nights, like I just described, all kinds of arts, including theater, and they got together to debate the ideas of the day. So Criterion Association is the, I would say, it planted the seed for what then became Bucharest inside the Beltway. And each of those individuals that I mentioned, Ionesco and company, inspire me personally as an artist, because Ionesco didn't just write plays. He wrote all kinds of stuff. He was a multi-genre writer. He was a reluctant Romanian. That's what I've become. You don't have to just, the USA silo of get your MFA, just do one thing, to hell with all the rest. None of these incredible Romanian minds were just one thing, and they changed the world. So I am not just one thing, and it's all, I like to say it's all part of the same endeavor. Like I was saying, it's nothing is a side project. It has my full attention when I am working on it. If you are a local or international artist, please follow BIB. If you follow on Instagram, we'll follow you right back, and then we'll be able to amplify your work.
This poem is the title poem from my poetry book, Green Horses on the Walls. Green Horses on the Walls is a very important expression in the Romanian language. It means to have impossible dreams. And for me, growing up with an engineering dad and a math mom, my dream of being a creative seemed very impossible. So you'll see in the poem why this expression has been a very central part to my life. And I do want to give credit to my dad, who gave me such a hard time growing up, because his advice to have a real job is the reason I can be an artist. Ca vezi pe pereți! Asta a fost la început în mintea mea. Visurile mele n-au fost posibile. Am fost nebuna, bătută în cap. Cristina, fi serioasă. Vrei doar ca vezi pe pereți. Green horses on the walls. The Romanian expression for having delusions. From the start, I was told my dreams weren't possible, that I was crazy, that I needed to be serious, that theater was a hobby. I was merely chasing the green horses, and it was time to grow up because they didn't exist. But I know my need to write exists. I know that the open page is the reservoir for my joy and pain. I know that the sweat-stained floors of an empty theater welcome me. I also know that my dimensions cannot be confined to a DCCV, a list of degrees and honors. Now, perhaps those don't truly exist. Can they capture a beating heart, prayers, kindness, caring for our elders and children? Or the next play that's on the tip of my pen and igniting my mind with excitement? The straitjacketed list to DC Impress is what confines and lies. My truth is displayed on the open canvas of my art. My truth runs with the green horses through the fields, down Rockville Pike, and all the way to the heart of DC 14th Street. I hear them calling, Cristina, hi a casa, calling me home. As I walk today through canopy of trees, I cross paths with a butterfly, and I came home to write this poem. And neither were or are delusions. Kaj vezi pe pereți? Adorat 34 de ani. Pentru mine să știu, adânc în inima mea, că sunt exact cum m-am creat și a vrut Dumnezeu. Și pentru asta sunt pur și simplu mulțumită. Green horses on the walls. It took me 34 years to know that I am exactly as God created and wanted. And for that, I am simply grateful.
The most recent book, and I wish everyone would bring a big pile of books so they've got things to hold up at the right time. A collection of plays, and I saw that you've gone to New York to do the drama bookshop to launch that. Tell us about the book, but also about the launch as well itself, which looked great.
The launch, well, okay, maybe it's clear by now, I am not a New York City person. I am Durham, North Carolina, DC through and through. Denver has been a huge culture shock for me. A lot of my life was outside of the US after Oxford. So going to New York to launch 5 published plays at the Drama Bookshop, the oldest English language bookshop in the world.
Older than Oxford, surely not.
For plays.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
We'll let you have that one.
Yes. Dramatist bookshop. Dramatist bookshop. Owned by Lin-Manuel Miranda, on Times Square, only a block and a half from the New York Times headquarters. I'm telling you, it was wild. I could not believe that this was happening to me. The Eventbrite for the launch sold out 1 week in advance. It was a collaboration with the Romanian Cultural Institute of New York. They're very dear collaborators and also friends. And it was a great celebration. I've been a playwright since age 14. I've written 19 plays, I mentioned that earlier. So these plays are from different periods of my life, but when I first was thinking, I want to publish my first anthology, I decided to go with plays that had a robust production history and also great press attached. So that means that all 4 of these plays have been produced. My work has been produced in 4 countries at this point. And then local news that was, covering them, amplifying them. The director of the Romanian Cultural Institute says that my plays are always fighting for causes. And I laughed at that because he's the first person who actually identified, I would say what really what really drives me, yes, that is true. Each play is fighting for justice in some way, shape, or form. The first, To Those Who Haven't Stopped Thinking, it's coming out as a one-off script like this later this year, is about somebody from the West, so to speak, the developed world, going to a dystopian, post-apocalyptic, post-totalitarian world and trying to, quote unquote, help, and learning that everyone in the dystopian world actually does not want to be helped. And so how can there be any change? This was inspired by, I had an internship when I was in college at Freedom House in Bucharest. And of course I went there with these, very US democratic ideals. And nobody really wanted to hear them. So I was inspired by that. It is totally, it is abstract, it is wacky. The next is District Land, which is arguably my most successful play. I wrote it when I was living in Washington, D.C. It is an Ionesco-style absurd comedy, but I would say more a satire, skewering American ambition, particularly DC ambition. We sold out at Washington, D.C.'s Capitol Fringe Festival in 2014. We had an extended run. The show was so successful. It was the hit show that summer. Everybody was wearing their District Land t-shirt around Washington. And we had a rock star review in the Washington Post. After that, the play was bought for TV development by a local filmmaker. He made a pilot. It was, shall we say, it aired at festivals in the States. He actually won an award at one of the festivals. But it was a different time back then. It was right before the 2016 presidential election. So Obama years DC was different from what followed thereafter. So who knows if it would have been made into a TV series. Now we have the streaming era, so everything is very different. Third play is an advocacy play for mental health, actually inspired by my own mental health journey. My first year at Oxford, I got very sick and I had to go home, and I was in the hospital for a long time, and I've been on a mental health journey ever since. And was produced this play in the DC Black Theater Festival in Washington, DC, in collaboration with NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, also sold out. And then the final play is a play that I wrote for a contest in DC at Theater J, which is the Jewish theater. And so it's a spoof on a spoof of Uncle Vanya. It's actually a critique of Putin's Russia, which couldn't be more timely because of what's going on. And that's Life According to Swami Shiva. That's a 10-minute play. So all different likes, all different genres, all in their own ways, ridiculous and fighting for change. And then Buchenwald, much more serious. This is almost a monologue, although there are a couple other characters, about a Nazi commandant imprisoned in his own concentration camp after World War II. So after the Soviet army liberated the concentration camps coming from the east, they then used those camps to intern the Germans. And so I visited this camp. I was an exchange student in Germany in college, and I visited it, and I saw the chalk chamber, which was one of the torture chambers, and I just had this, I had a question, well, what would happen if the person who ran this camp was then trapped in this chamber? And that's the play. This was produced when I was in college, starring a local Chicago professional actor. All of my work is available. You can go to my website and order from me at a discount. If you're in the States and some other countries, things are on Amazon and other websites. So yeah. Oh, and I should say there's more to come. Colombo Calling is being released later this year, a play from Sri Lanka. And I mentioned To Those Who Haven't Stopped Thinking, the one-off script from the anthology, also coming out later this year.
Well, that's going to be my question. So what's next? What's coming next? You've got those. What are you working on now?
So those are forthcoming. Something else that's forthcoming is that Finally Quiet has been translated into Spanish. My poetry book and history book I mentioned are available in Romanian translation. You can buy them in Romania, in bookstores, and also on all the websites. I launched them on a national tour last year. And I decided I wanted a new challenge because Denver is, most people speak Spanish because of the Mexican population. And most of my students of the past 4 years are Spanish is their native language. And so I've really been on a personal quest to learn Spanish. And I thought, well, I would love my next book to be in Spanish. And now shopping around Spanish language publishers for this. And like written some reminders of what I'm up to, because it's always a lot. I'll be launching Finally Quiet at Boulder Bookstore next March with some other Colorado authors. This is very important for anyone who wonders how artists can be artists. And that is, unless you are independently wealthy, the artist needs a day job. So I have always had a day job and worked extremely hard at building a parallel career so that I could support my creative career. This is very important, especially if younger scholars are watching this. If you want to gamble on going into debt for an MFA, there is no guarantee on the other side of that. So you do need to think strategically, how are you really going to do this? So I've been able to do it by working full-time in history teaching and research. When I was in Washington, D.C., I spent 4 years at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in research, and I wrote for they have an encyclopedia of camps and ghettos, which is, yes, just as depressing as it sounds. And I wrote about Vichy camps across North and West Africa and France as well, and of course Romania and what is today's Romania, so Hungarian control camps. That's a lot. But I've now been able to revisit this published research that I've done for my job at the University of Denver. I just started actually as the senior researcher on their Holocaust Survivor project. So they have a center called the Holocaust Awareness Institute that runs this survivor database, and there are biographies and timelines on the website that Colorado's, any students or anybody who's interested can go and learn more about survivors with Colorado ties. And so I've been brought on board to document these stories. I'm meeting with a survivor's family when I get back to Denver. I'm already working on one of these biographies. So that's the research part. The teaching part is I'm teaching about this, I call it the unknown Holocaust, as it was perpetrated in Africa and non-Nazi places, such as France and on the East, Romania. So I'll be teaching that course in the winter. And I'm using the teaching experience to write a book, more popular history book, not academic book, about the unknown Holocaust. We need to get, people know the big names, Buchenwald, Auschwitz, Dachau, right? The Holocaust was a vast, extermination network, and it did span the globe. And I do have this knowledge about how it went down in Africa and in Europe. So I'm putting this all together as a history book. So that's the history book, The Unknown Holocaust. And I'm working on, I've already written a lot of poems for my next poetry book, which is called And the Caravan Rolls On, which is a Romanian expression that means leaving the haters in the dust. And I'm working on a theater book with my idol and dear friend, Domnica Rădălescu. She's one of our diaspora's most esteemed creative writers. She's a professor at Washington and Lee, and it's about theater as resilience and resistance. So it's autobiographical, but also plays that we've written that are along those themes. And I have to remind myself all the things I'm doing. So that and the theater and my play. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. This is an important play. I have been a resident playwright at the Boulder Ensemble Theater to start working on this play, which is at the moment titled Born Colorado. And it is a tribute to my mom's mom, my American grandmother, who was born on a farm in eastern Colorado And it's an opportunity to really dive into the difficult Colorado history of the 20th century. We're talking the Ku Klux Klan. Her family was discriminated against by the KKK because they were a Catholic family. She had a neighbor who was a Japanese family who had been interned during World War II and settled in Colorado. They had Nazi prisoners of war on her farm. All sorts of really serious history stuff happening when she was growing up in Colorado that even Coloradans don't talk about or know about. So it's called Born Colorado, and that's also a dig to Colorado because everybody in Colorado only cares about if you were born there. And since I'm allowed to write Born Colorado. So
this poem is what we in the spoken word community call new shit. My spoken word stage name is Lady Godiva, which means to speak the hard truths, and was given to me by Johnny Apple, the chair of my Rhodes Selection Committee in Washington, D.C., 2003. Meet me where time stops. In this time where no one responds to email, and we don't know which platform to DM, meet me where time stops. No rushing full speed ahead and no slowing down. Instead, meet me where time stops. Not Musk's X telling us to join what's happening now. Right here, in this room, at this moment, the IRL now is actually where time stops. Art lives where time stops. Artists, the true ones, can always make time stop. Creativity can make anyone stop in their tracks. Hashtag facts. Only when time stops is there time to listen, to pause, to reflect, and act without impulse. Only when time stops can we step outside of ourselves and imagine how it might be for someone else. And that knowledge, when time is back up and running, can save us all from our individual selves and cause the universal act of living to make a hell of a lot more sense.
Rhodes class of 2024 arriving next week, I think. What's your advice to someone arriving here in Oxford, in particular those who've got an interest in the arts?
This advice is coming from my heart, and as an educator, I work with young people, so the age of the Rhodes Scholars coming up. And I know that everyone's on their phones and everything is in the internet sphere. And also I know what it's like to be a Rhodes Scholar, where you feel like you have to make the right connections and go to the right things. And especially since you have the Character and Leadership program and so much more programming at Rhodes House, what I'm about to say is going to be even more difficult. And that is to be where you are. You are in Oxford. You're at the University of Oxford, the best university in the world, okay, with the most exceptional students from all over the world. If you're a creative, you're in the city of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. One of my idols, Susan Sontag, studied here. You name it, great minds have studied here. And I would just say, like, sink into it, lean into it. What does Oxford, what do your colleges? For me, Wadham is, that's what's so dear to me about Oxford. If you want more of a culture fix, of course you go to the plays and there is always music going on in all of the colleges. There's so much to do here, but if that's not enough, just hop on the train to London. And believe me, there's a lot of culture there. I used to get on the train and meet a friend in London to go dancing at the Fabric nightclub. You'll find things that you like. And I think this is particularly important because every time I go to one of these Zooms, where it's like the older generation, even older than myself, telling the younger generation what to do in Oxford, it's always, travel, go, finally get on a plane and see the world. These young people have seen the world. Okay, my students in Denver have been to Argentina, all over Europe, Asia, you name it. Everybody's already been everywhere. So my challenge to the new Rhodes Scholars is to be where you are. I would also say one more thing, and this is relevant to one of the poems I'm going to do. So get involved in your college MCR. I was MCR president when I was at Wadham. Trust me, it's not too much work, and then you get to know everybody in the college. Your faculty, get to know your supervisor. I'm so close with my supervisor. He lives in a cottage outside of Oxford and walks here with his dog, and all of the students have done the walk with him to his cottage and come back. I mean, just lean into it, these things that are here. And, don't be Rhodes Scholar careerist calculated with everything, because trust me, life doesn't work out the way you've planned it at this moment. I certainly did not anticipate getting sick and having to absolutely leave Oxford and have a doctor in North Carolina tell me, oh, you're a Rhodes Scholar, you don't have to go back. So discard all that. Life doesn't happen the way you want it to, and you have to roll with the punches. And so this is my final message. Just enjoy and have fun.